Welcome to the Conflict Zone, a channel dedicated to informing about major conflict points around the world.
In this video, we discuss into the intensifying conflict in the South China Sea, with particular emphasis on the growing assertiveness and aggression of China towards the Philippines. It also examines the potential implications of U.S. intervention, as the United States has made it clear that it will defend its ally against any acts of aggression by China.
Don't forget to subscribe and click the notification bell to stay updated with all our latest news.
The roots of the territorial dispute in the South China Sea can be traced back to the late 1940s, during the final stages of the Chinese Civil War. At that time, both the Chinese nationalists, led by Chiang Kai-shek, and the Chinese communists, under the leadership of Mao Zedong, began publishing maps that claim vast portions of the South China Sea as Chinese territory. These maps, known as the 11-dash line maps, depicted the sea with 11 dashes or lines, essentially outlining the area that China claimed as its own. However, in the 1950s, the newly established communist government in China revised these maps, reducing the 11 dashes to 9 and removing the lines that encroached on the northern coast of Vietnam. This revision resulted in what is now known as the 9-dash line, which Beijing insists delineates Chinese territory, despite overlapping with the exclusive economic zones, EEZs, of several Southeast Asian nations, including Vietnam, Malaysia, Brunei, Indonesia, and particularly the Philippines. China's claim over nearly the entire South China Sea is based on what it describes as historical ties, asserting that this vast expanse of water, which is almost twice the size of the Mediterranean Sea, belongs solely to China. According to Beijing, only China has the right to exploit the resources within this area. The major issue with China's claim, however, is that it directly contravenes the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, UNCLOS. This international treaty, which most nations adhere to, dictates that coastal states have sovereign rights to an exclusive economic zone that extends up to 200 nautical miles, approximately 370 kilometers, from their coastlines. Within this zone, the coastal state has the exclusive right to exploit natural resources. Despite this clear legal framework, China has chosen to disregard these international norms, asserting its dominance over the South China Sea and infringing upon the territorial rights of its neighbors. In recent years, China's actions in the South China Sea have grown increasingly aggressive. Beijing has not only laid claim to these waters, but has also undertaken extensive militarization efforts, constructing artificial islands equipped with military facilities such as airstrips, radar systems, and missile launchers. These islands serve as a base for China's expanding military presence in the region. However, the most alarming aspect of China's actions is the direct harassment of Filipino vessels by Chinese military ships. This harassment occurs well within the Philippines' exclusive economic zone, in clear violation of international law. There have been numerous reports of Chinese vessels engaging in aggressive tactics against Filipino ships, including the use of water cannons and ramming, which have resulted in injuries to Filipino sailors and significant damage to their vessels. Some Filipino ships, which are often 5 or 6 times smaller than their Chinese counterparts, have suffered severe damage as a result of these encounters. In addition to these aggressive actions, China's rhetoric has also become increasingly belligerent. Despite already engaging in violent confrontations, Beijing has issued warnings that it may escalate its actions further, potentially by employing more forceful measures, which many observers interpret as a threat to use live fire against Filipino vessels. This escalation poses a significant threat to regional stability and raises the stakes for all parties involved. However, China's ambitions face a significant challenge in the form of the United States. The Philippines, once a U.S. territory until gaining independence after World War II, has maintained a close military relationship with the United States. Fearing future invasions and recognizing its own military limitations, the Philippines entered into a mutual defense treaty with the United States in August 1951. This treaty not only allows the U.S. military to operate from bases in the Philippines, but also obligates the United States to come to the defense of the Philippines if it is attacked. This is a legally binding commitment, meaning that if the Philippines invokes this treaty, the United States is required by law to respond militarily in defense of its ally. Currently, the United States maintains a significant military presence in the Philippines, with hundreds of troops, aircraft, and naval vessels stationed across 9 bases throughout the country. This strategic positioning allows the U.S. to rapidly deploy forces in the event of a military crisis. Recently, U.S. military officials have reiterated their readiness to fulfill their obligations under the Mutual Defense Treaty. The Pentagon has made it clear that any Chinese attack on Filipino forces or territory will trigger an immediate and robust U.S. response. Therefore, if China continues to escalate its aggression and launches a more forceful attack on Filipino vessels, the Philippines would have little choice but to activate its defense treaty with the United States. Such a scenario would likely lead to a direct military confrontation between Chinese and U.S. naval forces in the South China Sea, a development that could have far-reaching and potentially catastrophic consequences for regional and global security. The situation remains highly volatile, with both sides on high alert, and the potential for conflict looms large over the region.
We are on board a Philippine Coast Guard vessel. We are in the middle of the South China Sea. This is a hotly contested waterway. And what I'm surrounded by now is a broken roof because the Chinese Coast Guard, which you can see just over here, has been directly firing water cannons at us. This has long been a game of brinkmanship between China and the Philippines. They both lay claim to this waterway. And we have seen a tussle, a choreography over the past few hours between the two. The Philippine Coast Guard being encircled by the Chinese. Now, this is something that could easily take a turn for the worse. They've been able to contain possible open conflict, but analysts worry that things could easily change. We've seen the US stepping up its military presence in this area as they call on China not to take what they describe as aggressive tactics. The Chinese say it is their right to be here. Now, this is part of a resupply mission. The Philippine Coast Guard say they are supporting the Philippine fishermen who use these waters to fish in. I think what has been fascinating to witness is just how much it feels like this is on a precipice. Tensions have really escalated in the past few months. And what we've witnessed here is a direct sign of that.
If you're not yet subscribed to the channel, make sure to do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with the latest news. See you in the next video.